Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Radio Works World. Angelica Breikers here, your Courage host. And I'm very pleased to welcome this morning Sherry Jarrett. Good morning, Sherry.
Good morning, Angelica. Good morning, everyone.
How are you doing this morning?
Yes, I'm very well. I'm glad we could get our technical things sorted and get online.
This is it. So, Sherry, please tell me a little bit about you, what you're doing now. And then I know that you're in the process of, you plan to write some books. And if you just wanted to maybe perhaps share a little bit what your message is in your first book.
Okay, well, I'm an ancestral healer and systemic constellations therapist. I also work with people with life-threatening health conditions and help them deal with the underlying emotional issues.
Yeah.
So that's really the focus of my work. I do one-to-one sessions and I also offer groups and workshops.
Yeah.
Yes.
The ancestral healing is done with constellation therapy. Is that right?
Yes, with some constellations therapy, but also with some shamanic ritual. The two modalities really blend very well together.
Right.
So for those that don't know, systemic constellations therapy was originally called family constellations therapy and developed by a man called Bert Hellinger. But he had spent nearly 20 years prior to developing this modality in Africa with the Zulu Sangomas. So he learned a lot about the presence of the ancestors and the way in which they worked with the ancestors. So I guess it was seeded in such a way that the blend of the two modalities go very, very well together. So yeah, that's the ancestral healing. I call a blend of the constellations therapy and shamanic rituals.
Okay, so what sort of like, I know you had a bit of a journey because we have connected before. So yeah, I would like to give us a little bit of an outline of your journey and where you, to the point where you reached the moment where you thought, yes, I got to write, I got to write some books here.
Okay, well, I was born in South London of mixed heritage.
Yeah.
So a lot of the groups that were put there together when they first came to England as immigrants really kind of blended together in the community. So my father's Jamaican and my mum was Irish, possibly Roma Gypsy on her side. So there was a real kind of richness of culture and heritage, but also some deep issues around transgenerational pain and the separation of people from their homelands and the histories of trauma that they may have individually carried. So I grew up in a very rich place, place that was actually very exciting and had a real energy of newness and new beginnings and opportunities, but also had a lot of underlying pain that each individual was carrying. So as a result of that, I experienced some trauma within my own family systems. And quite a lot of trauma extreme over the years, to the point where I got to 21 and was really broken. Yeah. And really found it difficult to be in the world anymore. Really didn't want to be here. Such was the amount of pain I carried and the inability I had to access support at that time. So I really had to go deep within myself, and ask some big questions in order to integrate and heal the experiences that had happened, really to get my head around things. Why do we hurt each other so much? How much are we carrying? And growing up as a Black Irish Gypsy, I was very aware of the interracial tensions and the underlying issues, you know, because if my white family hated black people, then they hated me. And if my black family hated white people, then they hated me.
Yeah. So
I
yeah.
really had to kind of go inwards and look at some of these issues, because it all felt very personal and processed within me, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so very early on, my first real initiation, I suppose, was into mediumship.
Right. Yeah.
And I went through some interesting experiences that led me into mediumship at the age of 21.
Right.
And I see that as my first initiation, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I practiced that for 5 years, and I realized that there was a realm of love and support and connection
Mm-hmm.
to our ancestors that we could tap into, that was greatly reviving for me, and for the people that I shared my work with.
Yes.
From there, I was guided again by the ancestors to go into counselling, formal counselling, and to train as a counsellor.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up specialising with trauma therapy, and worked for 8 years specialising in that field. I worked for a charity. I taught at colleges and different institutes around working with survivors of child sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of corruption, both within family systems, but also within our establishments, our government systems, our police forces, you know.
Yeah.
So that was another deeply shocking initiation.
Mm-hmm.
But one that really taught me how to see the underlying roots of these problems, and what kind of healing or awareness that it really takes to really transform these issues, instead of keep repeating the same old patterns where we, you know, send the perpetrators underground.
Yeah.
And the problem continues.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I gained some interesting perspective, but also became very traumatized working in that field on the front line for such a long time.
Yeah.
And I went through my own collapse after that, and really was suffering from secondary trauma. And I took a couple of years out of work to really recover myself. And I used the metaphysical work in order for my own recovery to occur.
Yeah.
And I got involved at that point in theta healing from the Think Institute. It really was about conscious co-creation of our own realities, changing emotional states and mental patterns. Mm-hmm. So I became a teacher of that work, and I did that work for a couple of years as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then something called me back.
Right.
Into constellations work, which I'd actually studied 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
And I decided to go back into studying that work. And I went to Oxford and trained with D.D. Spencer there,
mm-hmm.
around constellations work. And I realized that it was such a wonderful meeting place for all the work that I'd done.
Mm-hmm.
We work with this field of consciousness that holds the memory of everything past, present, and future. And it has a natural law such that it wishes to create balance and harmony, or return things to balance. And this morphic field, we are all impacted by this, and we are all part of this, because we're all part of families and systems and groups and cultures and races. And as such, we're impacted by the collective. So this was an amazing way to step into this field and use this field, not only to work and help people to heal at the roots and resolve traumas within their own personal lives and family systems, mm-hmm. but also a way to help them to expand what was possible for them in the future.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful meeting place for all of my work. So I understood how to hold the trauma when it arose in the system and what was needed to rebalance. Mm-hmm. And also had the experience in conscious co-creation.
Yeah.
That enabled me to go into the future with somebody and look at what is blocking their path and what kind of things need to happen for them to meet their personal goals and our collective goals.
Yes. So, I think you an amazing lady, because I am, aware of your story. And what is the message that you with your books that you are planning to write, to share with people, to share your learnings from our suffering, because the experiences that we have make us who we today and give us our learning to become these incredible healers or people with an incredible message. So would you just like to say a little bit about that? I know you've got 3 books planned. Maybe start with the first one.
Yeah. So the first book is going to be about my own life journey and wisdom that I say was scorched upon my soul during that period of my life. I learned this lesson over and over again in the most deeply painful ways. But actually the message came to me during an out-of-body experience as a 5-year-old child. I was at the hands of my abusers.
Yeah.
I actually came out of my body and was given certain information and shown certain things about the future. The key message that I received that I really didn't understand was that love is a healer and a shield, and we must love our enemies.
Yes.
And then throughout the rest of my life, I went through, up until I was 20, I went through trauma after trauma after trauma that really grounded that knowledge in me. I realized that we can't end the problem. We will always have victims unless we find a way to help the perpetrator in some way return to innocence. That the qualities of mercy and compassion were the only thing that could possibly steal the energies that had been activated and that were being acted out through different acts of perpetration. So that unless we healed the perpetrators at the core, this was going to keep happening and we were going to keep having victim after victim.
Yeah.
So after years of work in the world, I finally understood what this message really, really meant for us in our day-to-day lives. And, you know, often we have an inner perpetrator and we need to work with that energy. We need to work with it in a way that we're able to bring it into the light. So the journey always starts within.
Yeah.
But once, you know, souls that have been left are aware of the possibility of redemption, of really being able to look at their own pain and how this energy they've been caught in initially got activated, we have a hope of like really overcoming things.
Yes.
In a more restorative justice way, rather than the punitive systems that we shouldn't have. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be stopped and that there shouldn't be consequences to people's actions, but I think if people are really supported enough that they're able to look at the consequences of their actions on the victim, for example, that will have more of an impact than, you know, being punished and called a monster and taken deeper into your own annihilation or outcasting, you know? So the key message is love is a healer and a shield, and we must find a way to love our enemies.
Yes, because it is so important, you know, for, you know, there is no excuses made, you know, for any abuser, not at all, you know, but it is, you know, to help them to look within, to actually find the reason, the pattern, the pain, see the pain, what has driven them to be where they are.
Yes. And in my years of working with survivors of child sexual abuse, people didn't want revenge.
No.
They wanted the perpetrator to see the impact. And they wanted to understand, how the hell did you do this to me? How did you come to do this to me?
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we are not, you know, we have a sort of like understanding and looking within us, you know, and this is how you break the pattern. And you actually realize that this is not who you really are.
Yes. And this is what I talk about in terms of the loss of innocence.
Yes.
You know, if I look at my own father, who I experienced some abuse at the hands of, if I look at his story, his life story, and what was the point where he came to lose his innocence, to the point that he could be so far away from goodness and purity that he could harm a child in that way.
Yeah.
You know, and that certainly was great healing for my heart and brought a great deal of peace for me to actually see that.
Yes, because that is sort of like takes you to the point where you be able to forgive.
Yeah, I guess it even takes us beyond the need for forgiveness.
Yes.
You know, often, you know, on a bodily level, the experience and a developing ego level, the experience of sexual abuse or any other kind of abuse is very, very personal. It's happened to me in my body, in this relationship with this person, in my relationship with this person. You know, it's very, very personal. But I think part of the healing journey is kind of working through that and holding and honoring yourself and acknowledging the violation and the impact on you physically and emotionally and on your, you know, your mind as well. But beyond that, it's not personal. This person went through something and you just happen to be in the way, you know?
Yeah,
and I think if we can see that, it releases a lot of tension.
Yeah. There are probably, you know, a lot of people out there that maybe, you know, have been or have not been, you know, abused. But, you know, in general, what would be sort of like a big message, a tip, or an insight that you could give and share with the audience that would assist them or help them, or whatever the situation is, to you know, to overcome their challenges?
I would say that we exist in a universe that is has natural laws. There are natural laws in the universe, and a lot of our laws, legal laws, contravene the natural laws. We're needing really to return to harmony with the planet and within ourselves and within our social relationships. There's a great need for harmony, and this is manifested in beautiful ways in the world. So if we can really align ourselves to that intention, and whether that's personal or community based, the return to harmony, the return to balance, and to understand that the past, present and future are intricately linked. And if we're able to really look at our roots, where we're coming from, and use that as a navigation and to draw wisdom from that in order to go forward, we can really start to empower our lives and to supercharge ourselves. You know, we are incredibly powerful beings, and we're really waking up to that now. And our understanding of metaphysics and the quantum field and the morphic field and all of that is really enhancing what is possible for us as a collective right now. So it's a time of great change, and if we can be aware of the universal laws, the need for harmony and balance, and be aware of our own power to manifest what it is we want in our lives and in our world, we can really go far now. So as much as my work is about trauma and the past and the roots, that's just the roots. There's also the part of supercharging and moving forward.
Yes, very well said, because it is very important to, you know, align and also to be aware of what's going on around us. You know, absolutely. It's just so important because, you know, it's about changing also, isn't it? Making the changes internally, having the alignment. And I'm just kind of rephrasing it a little bit different, having the alignment so that we can move forward and become open.
Yes. And what we know in terms of conscious co-creation is that the heart is the greatest magnet we have.
Yes.
It's not what you believe that is bringing things into your life. It's what you feel. So
Yeah.
if it doesn't feel possible or it doesn't feel safe, somehow you're not going to be able to bring it into being.
Mm-hmm.
So because the trauma and the hurt is also held in the heart, we have to clear the heart of all of those fears and all of those wounds in order to be able to make a clear manifestation of what it is we want to bring into being. So
Yeah.
coherence, heart, mind coherence, and coherence also with the outside world. So much with trauma, we want to shut our eyes. We don't want to see, it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But as a result of that, we're out of alignment with truth.
Excuse me. Yeah. And the excuse me, sorry.
It's okay.
Yes, the heart is the biggest energy field.
Yes.
When I learned that, it's just absolutely amazed by that.
Yes.
You know, absolutely amazing. So, I mean, Sherry, that was just absolutely wonderful. You know, thank you for taking the time today.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, with us. And I hope if, you know, in the near future that you would like to come back and perhaps we can chat a bit more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you
And I'm
very
very open to hearing people's comments or questions regarding the subject matter, because I realise that it's very emotive and potentially triggering, and it brings up a lot to people. So I'm open if people want to get in contact, if they have comments or questions. You can find me at cherryjarrett.com
Okay.
if you'd like to get in touch.
So that was www.cherryjarrett.com.
That's correct.
Yes, that's great. And again, have a wonderful day.
Okay, thank you, Angelica. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, and we speak soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.